January 9th, 1514. A mournful silence blankets the Château de Blois. In a dimly lit royal chamber, Anne of Brittany, Queen of France, Duchess of Brittany, gasps her final breaths at just 36 years old. But this is not merely the death of a queen. It is the extinguishing of a spirit once destined to rule freely, now broken by the weight of 2 forced marriages, 2 dead kings, and a crown soaked in betrayal. Her last words are not of peace, but a desperate plea. Let my daughter never endure what I have lived. Anne dies not as a monarch, but as the last sovereign of an independent Brittany, crushed under the heel of a nation that devoured her homeland. She was the ultimate political prize in a ruthless game of European power, sacrificed for being born heir to a duchy France refused to let remain free. But how did this proud duchess become the centerpiece of one of the most harrowing betrayals in medieval history? Why was she twice married to the very men who destroyed her world? To understand, we must return to the beginning. Anne was born on January 25, 1477, at the Château de Nantes, daughter of Francis II, Duke of Brittany, and Margaret of Foix. From the cradle, her destiny was fixed. She would inherit not only a throne, but a centuries-old resistance. Brittany was the last autonomous jewel defying the centralizing grip of the French crown, wealthy, powerful, and dangerous. Paris saw it as unfinished business. Anne's childhood unfolded in the shadows of war. Her father, Francis, waged a desperate battle to keep his duchy independent from France's relentless ambition. King Louis XI of France had vowed to absorb Brittany, and everyone knew the reckoning would come. Anne was raised amid diplomatic chaos, trained not for luxury, but for leadership. She spoke Latin, French, Breton, and Spanish. She studied politics and law. Her father saw in her the last hope of a free Brittany, but he could not protect her from fate. In 1488, when Anne was only 11, her world shattered. Her father died, suddenly, mysteriously, just days after yet another failed defense against French aggression. Some whispered of poison. What mattered was this: Brittany's last duke was gone. And now his daughter was alone, a child duchess with vultures circling. Her guardian, Marshal de Rieux, was appointed regent, but he served not Anne, but his own ambition. Across Europe, powerful men began plotting. King Charles VIII of France, the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian of Austria, and Ferdinand of Spain all saw Anne not as a girl, but as a gateway. Whoever married her would inherit Brittany. At just 12 years old, Anne became the most hunted heiress in Europe. And her own regent was the first to betray her, secretly negotiating with France to sell her off for political gain. Anne discovered the plot from loyal servants. With no one left to trust, she took fate into her own hands. In 1490, barely 13, Anne arranged a daring marriage by proxy to Maximilian of Austria, future emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. It was a bold, brilliant move. The ceremony took place in secret. Maximilian did not attend, but Anne believed the union would shield her from France. For a brief moment, she believed she had saved Brittany. She was wrong. France exploded in fury. King Charles VIII declared the marriage illegal and launched a massive invasion. By autumn, French troops poured into Brittany, their goal clear: to break Anne and seize her duchy by fire and blood. The siege of Rennes in 1491 became a horror without end. Villages were razed. Nobles loyal to Anne were executed. The French army burned its way across her homeland, sending a message: surrender or watch your people die. Trapped within Rennes, Anne, just 14, faced a nightmarish choice: heap her crown and doom her people, or give in and lose everything. Maximilian, her husband, sent no help. His empire was embroiled in Italian wars. Anne was abandoned, alone, The siege dragged on for months. Starvation, death, fear. Finally, in December 1491, Anne agreed to a bitter peace. She would annul her Austrian marriage and wed the man who had destroyed her country, Charles VIII of France. There was no celebration. The marriage was a funeral for Brittany. Anne, forced to sign her duchy away, was paraded as a royal prize. She became Queen of France, but not in love, not in joy. She was watched, controlled, forbidden from speaking Breton, from seeing her allies, from mourning her identity. She lived under glittering house arrest, her homeland burning behind her. Anne bore Charles several children, all of whom died in infancy or were stillborn. Rumors whispered of poison and insurance policy to prevent any heir from claiming both France and Brittany. Anne lived in fear, not just for her people, but for her children. Her nightmares would come true again when Charles died in 1498, but instead of freedom, she was given a second chain. Louis XII, the new king, annulled his own marriage and demanded Anne's hand. She refused, but France had made the consequences clear. Another refusal meant renewed war. Another siege, more Breton blood spilled. And so, in 1499, Anne was forced into her second royal marriage. This time, she knew exactly what she was sacrificing. Louis XII proved even more ruthless. Anne was stripped of her remaining autonomy. She could not fund Breton culture, could not speak her native language. She was forbidden from raising her daughters as Bretons. Everything she was, every shred of identity, was erased, bit by bit, and still she resisted. In secret, she funded scribes to copy Breton texts, supported hidden artists who painted scenes of her homeland. She smiled in public, attending ceremonies, entertaining ambassadors, playing the perfect queen. But inside, she was dying. For each law she signed that handed more Breton land to France, her soul withered. Every forced smile was an act of defiance. She lived not as a queen, but as a symbol of conquest, a living trophy of France's dominance. And she watched, helpless, as her children were taken raised French, not Breton. Her legacy, her bloodline, stolen from her. Her greatest fear was not dying, but being forgotten. She would not allow it. In her final years, Anne turned to death with determination. If she could not live free, she would die with dignity. She planned her burial meticulously, insisting on secret Breton symbols, hidden from the French for decades. Her health failed. By 1512, she could no longer hide her suffering. Some said she died of sorrow. Others called it la mort de l'âme, death of the soul. By 1514, she knew her end was near. In her last days, she begged Louis to allow her daughter Claude to inherit Brittany. He refused. Even in death, they would deny her legacy. On January 9, 1514, Anne of Brittany died, her spirit broken, but not erased. Her final words were a curse upon her captors, and a whisper of hope for the Bretons yet to come. Anne of Brittany remains a symbol of resistance, not just for a duchy lost, but for every soul forced to smile under chains. Her story is one of unimaginable loss, but also of undying courage. She never stopped trying to protect her people, even as everything else was taken from her. More than 5 centuries later, her name still echoes through the hills of Brittany. Anne's life was not a tragedy. It was a quiet war. A war she fought with grace, with stubbornness, and with the hope that one day Brittany would remember what was stole and rise again.